Welcome to the Business of Hearing podcast, the #1 marketing and practice growth podcast for high-performing private practice hearing care leaders. It's Friday, and this is my end-of-week roundup of what's top of mind after 7 days of helping some of the world's best private practices to attract high-quality patients, fight the evil forces of manufacturer-owned chains, and be impossible to compete with. My name's Ollie Luke. Pull up a chair, pour yourself a drink, and let's have a chat. Welcome along to the Business of Hearing podcast, and I suppose we could call this Price Shoppers Anonymous because we're talking about how we can minimize being price shopped. And there's a few things that I want to share that I think will be really, really helpful. Now, if this is the first time that you're watching or listening to this, my name is Ollie Luke, and my promise here is to try and maximize the short time we have together, because one of the things that I tell regular listeners to this is, like, you need to be spending your time on the $1,000 an hour activities. And if that's true, it means every minute we're spending together, is $16. So let's ensure that we're minimizing the nonsense and getting straight on with the good stuff. And with that said, let's jump into this price shopping thing, because it seems to be happening more and more, right? Patients are coming, they want to know how much, then they go away and do their own research. You give them a recommendation. They're then running away to find how much they can buy that for elsewhere and price shop. And it's a pain in the backside. It's a waste of resource. It's a waste of time. And the question is, like, how can we minimize that? And if we fundamentally play with this, right, why does price shopping exist? Look, it's always going to exist, but it happens in some industries more than others. So, think of like your energy company that you use or your insurance company. Like, it's a commodity. And as a commodity, you don't care who the company is who supplies it. You just want it for the cheapest price. It's why comparison websites have come about so gloriously that you can say, here's how much I'm paying for my car insurance, or how much would it be for me to do this insurance piece? And it's like, here's all the companies, here's the cheapest. And you'll nearly always choose the cheapest. You don't really care who it is, because what they're supplying is a commodity. And of course, the energy companies, the insurance companies behind it are all trying to create a point of difference in a value proposition, like better service or more reviews or better reputation, that is trying to steer you away from choosing them over others. But most people will just go price focused. But you price shop and I price shop if we don't value the company behind the thing that we want. And this is the issue we've got with hearing care, right? Because the misconception and the belief system is that people still believe the solution to a hearing loss is a set of hearing aids. Like, around any dinner table now where dad is struggling to hear, the conversation at the table is, dad needs hearing aids. Dad, you need to go and get hearing aids. Nobody sat there saying, hey, dad, you need to go and visit a competent professional who's got a great track record of helping thousands of local people to achieve better hearing and step into a long-term care plan with high touch point and possibly blah, 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 blah. Like, that doesn't exist. People think hearing loss, hearing aids. And when that exists and that misconception is so common, then that becomes a challenge, right? Because if hearing aids is a solution, then just go the cheapest place where you can get hearing aids. If the widget is the star of the show, then Costco's cheaper than private practice. Online is cheaper than Costco. Go on eBay, buy some secondhand ones. Like, you can end up in that complete mess because people think the widget is the star of the show. And our job as hearing care professionals is to ensure that we can better educate that the solution to a hearing loss is great hearing care with a competent professional, with a long-term care plan and hearing aids, not just a widget. And you and I know that, right? But that's the narrative that we need to get out to the industry to ensure that next time those conversations are happening at the dinner table, it's not dad needs hearing aids, it's dad needs to do something about that. Dad needs to go and visit somebody about that. Like, that's the shift. Now, of course, you and I can only control so much in terms of that shift, and it's not an overnight process. But there is certain things we can be doing to minimize price shopping. And the biggest thing is stop being an apples versus apples comparison to everybody else. So right now, let's just play this out. If somebody needs hearing aids, and that's their belief system, if they come to you, most practices say, look, here's what we do. We'll have these devices. We've got premium devices, 3 years warranty, 3 years L&D, and a 3-year service plan, or a lifetime service plan, thumbs up. And it's this much. It's $6,000. It's $7,000. The patient can go to Costco and they'll see, okay, we've got these premium devices. We've got a 3-year warranty. We've got a 3-year L&D or a 2-year L&D, whatever Costco offer. And if you need anything, we're here to support you. like practically indifferent, right? But here's the difference. You want $6,000-7,000. Costco are happy with $2,000 to $3,000. All of a sudden, like, what would you do if the shoe was on the other foot, right? You'd probably go with that option because it makes a lot of logical sense. And that's the risk you run with this apples versus apples comparison. Like, you're never going to win that battle, or you're going to win it with the lazy people or the people that have been told they need to visit you or have been referred to you. It's you're good, but are you $4,000 better, like, in the consumer's eyes? Like, that's the challenge. What this needs to become is an apples versus apples pies comparison. And what I mean by that is you do significantly more than anybody else for the success of a patient. The issue is you don't articulate it. You don't tell them until they experience it post-transaction. Like, that's the bit we need to fix. Because if you can package up what you actually do for the patient over the Costco's, over the alternatives, over your competitors, then you're going to better educate the consumer to understand why they should choose you. And we help a lot of our inner circle members to do this. And I'll share some of the best practices is we need to get away from selling hearing aids. Like, we need to get to the narrative that what we sell is hearing care, and hearing aids are naturally part of that package. And what we do with many of our inner circle members that works really well is we do this pivot. So stop selling hearing aids with 3 years service. Let's make a transition to sell treatment plans. So, okay, here's the treatment plan. Here's what you do. Well, one of the line items is premium devices from a top manufacturer. What about rechargeability? Is that an option? What about Bluetooth connectivity? You're going to have a session with that patient in order to help them to connect to the key devices they want. What is your warranty? What is your L&D? Rather than 3 years, could we negotiate with the manufacturer to get it 4 years to create a point of difference? We've got some members who have negotiated to get it 5 years. All of a sudden, them versus everyone else is like that. But what about everything else? What are the other line items that you do that you don't articulate that nobody else does? Well, what about loaners? If anything goes wrong, you've got that patient's back, you'll put them in some other devices. You do that, you just don't tell them until the patient breaks the devices and then they realize what you've done. What about the way that you test? What about annual hearing evals? What about preventative maintenance checks and the regular appointments that they get? What about the priority support that you'll give them? What about in-house repairs? What about a fully managed manufacturer warranty? What do I mean by that? Well, you know, if your refrigerator breaks down, then it probably has a warranty. But guess what? You're going to have to call a number, deal with a load of nonsense, wait for somebody to come and collect it a week later, read this big long number that's on the back of your refrigerator that's faded away. It's an absolute nightmare. Fully managed manufacturer warranty means you got it. Patient hasn't got to stress. They drop them off with you. You manage it. Like, these are the things you do. You just don't articulate and package it well. But if you can do this well and build these into treatment plans, then it creates this apples versus apples pie comparison. And there's smart things that you can do here. If we want to get into the psychology of pricing and how you can do a better job, like, think about, let's say you've got 3 treatment plans. You've got a premium, you've got a mid-range, you've got an entry level. Like, you could be strategic with them. Like, and I'll share some examples here. Entry level, 2 years warranty, 2 years L&D, 2 years service. Mid-range, 3 years warranty, 3 years L&D, 3 years service. Premium, all-inclusive, your top plan, 4 years of everything. Right? You create points of difference outside of the technology. What else could you include? Well, could your premium plan have a minimum guaranteed future value trade-in value of, I don't know, $1,500, $1,000, $500? Like, could you add other things in that create anchors of when the right time to upgrade is, or gives you a set of conversation tracks to talk to the patient towards at month 42 to encourage them to step into something new? Like, you can steer these around so the difference between the plans isn't just the devices, which means you're going to end up in a conversation where you're trying to articulate the difference between this, and this has got more channels, and this does this is better in these environments. You can get away from that. You can be like, here's the 3 plans, which is right for you. This is obviously the best one, and a patient can make the best decision. Like, all of a sudden, it becomes a lot simpler. You get away from the widget being the star of the show. You're delivering a treatment plan to help the patient get from here to here over a period of time, and the device isn't the star of the show anymore. What you do is, and the device is just part of the process of them achieving that outcome. Like, get this right, and it's pretty significant. Hopefully that's making sense. I know it's kind of hard to verbally explain, and look, if you're watching the video show right now, I'll show you some examples on screen so you can see exactly what this looks like. But you can see the all-inclusive plan being more depth, more line items, articulating what you actually do. You see the middle plans where things are reduced. You see the entry plans where things are reduced a little more. And if you go to businessofhearing.com, navigate to this episode, I'll put some downloads there so you can see the big differences for yourself with an explanation of how this works and how you can implement it as well. But businessofhearing.com, navigate to this. And if you're watching the video show, you are getting all the advantages. So if you are an audio listener, make sure you go and check out the video version as well. A lot of little perks and benefits of that. But if you can implement this and just think about the difference that makes, it makes you very difficult to price shop, because patient comes to you and they see what you do and they can walk away and say like, okay, I need premium hearing aids elsewhere. But now they've seen things that you do that nobody else can compete with, which means it's not a simple price shop. You're justifying the difference. And I'll give you probably one of the most important things here where most people fall down. If a patient wants one device, right? Let's say they've got a single-sided hearing loss. It can never be half the price of what 2 devices would be. Like if you're doing that, let's say it's $8,000 for a pair of devices and all your service, but if someone's got a single-sided hearing loss, it's just $4,000. Like you are going to shoot yourself in the foot, because once again, you're playing to the narrative of what people are buying is hearing aids. They are not. You and I know that if somebody's got a single-sided hearing loss, they're not going to take half your time and energy. They're going to take just as much, if not more. So as a result, it's mad that it would be half the price. You're absolutely like tripping yourself up and you're going to mess your narrative up. Please, please, please get that right. What we do is typically do about 70% of the full price for a single-sided hearing loss. It can be quite expensive for one device if you're still looking at it through that lens, but makes a lot more sense from a narrative perspective. But I hope this has been helpful. Treatment plans is where I'd go to. And of course, there's so many different alternative pricing models, and they can all work. Like we've got many members with very, very, very different pricing models. All can be super successful. But the biggest thing from my perspective is stop selling the widget as the star of the show. If the patient continues to believe the star of the show is the device, you're going to get price shot more. It's going to be seen as a commodity. You're not going to have a strong point of difference against competitors. The treatment plans approach through my belief system and for what I've seen allows you to clearly explain to a patient that what they need is hearing care, not hearing aids. And once that belief system is adopted by the patient, nobody really can compete with you. You've got a category of one in terms of your marketplace. So I hope that's helpful. Hope I've repaid every single one of those $16 an hour minutes that you've borrowed me today. And as always, I'll be back next week with another episode where we'll talk about something entirely different. But appreciate your time, appreciate your ears, and I'll speak to you again soon. And there we have it. Another episode has come to an end, and I have a quick favour to ask. If you have found this helpful, then who do you know who should listen to this podcast? I strongly believe a rising tide lifts all boats, and right now, private practice needs to stick together to fight these big, gormless groups and these manufacturer-owned Goliaths that are looking to take market share from us. Consider who should be listening, pass on the word about the Business of Hearing podcast, and I'll see you again next week.